All right. Hello and welcome everyone to the builds refresh for RHINO 2022. Now, a disclaimer here at the beginning. If you are getting into Warframe and someone told you to look up a Brozime video on RHINO, he's a really good Warframe for new players. They are right, and thank them for me. I appreciate them sending you here. However, this is not the video you should be watching. The video you should be watching, I will have pinned as like the first comment. That is like the new player gear in general, which includes RHINO and has a lot of great advice if you're starting out. I'm only mentioning that here because RHINO is, I think, the best starter Warframe in the game, but this build is going to use a bunch of nonsense you will not have access to for likely hundreds of hours. And if you just want to see that goofy bullshit, then welcome. But otherwise, let's talk about RHINO and his current state in the game kind of later on. For that, the build for RHINO is looking pretty similar to it's been for a while, but things have kind of changed around him over time. That being that this build is kind of no longer good enough, or it's not just as good as other things you could do. Namely, Nezha is better RHINO now. Because Nezha can steal Roar from RHINO and just subsume that over one of Nezha's abilities, and Nezha has the damage boost of his own that stacks multiplicatively with it. Usually, Nezha is not only going to do more damage, he is going to be more survivable, and he's going to be much, much faster. So RHINO doesn't have a lot going for him when you compare him to Nezha. But comparing him to Nezha is like comparing him, like comparing God and Demigod. It's like, well, they're both extremely good, but one's just better. It's just stronger. It's not that that strength is necessary, but it is just better. So RHINO is more of a I like him pick, and also he is a very expensive pick, as you can see from what this build is right now. We are using 5 ranked 10 mods, and that is very, very expensive. Not to mention 2 Umbral Forma, which is kind of a lot. And also worth mentioning again, it could be a 3rd Umbral Forma for Vitality if you wanted to, as like that's kind of an option select you can make here, but I usually wouldn't suggest it as I don't think that the extra armor and strength from that is worth it. But you could go that direction if you feel like you don't need the range and you'd rather have more strength. So yeah, this build is basically a bunch of strength, a decent amount of range, and enough duration to make it work. Because Roar has, like, you know, a good duration at 30 seconds already, and making it 21 seconds is still going to make that very, very strong for whenever you need it, which is going to be very few cases. And we're using Iron Shrapnel and Ironclad Charge. Ironclad Charge needing the strength and a little bit of duration in order to have a much higher armor rating increase, and also give us that for a decent duration so we can activate R2 with it. We are subsuming Parasitic Armor into this build, which is the reason we have Redirection. Redirection gives us 1100 shields. This is affected by strength, so we are getting thousands of armor whenever we Parasitic Armor with full shields. This does not count over shields. It only counts your maximum shield count. Also, we are getting considerably more than this percentage because we are using Molt Augmented. I know a lot of these videos recently have been using Molt Augmented, but it's a really, really compelling arcane. It's really simple to include in a build, and if you don't absolutely need that strength up front, which you usually don't, 60% from one of your arcane slots is pretty hard to beat for the frames that really love strength a lot, and RHINO's definitely one of them. So what does this build do? Well, basically, you want to activate Parasitic Armor while you have like a basic iron skin for survivability on. You want to charge through as many enemies as you can, and then you want to hit your 2. Because your 2 gets armor based on your armor and your power strength. So whenever you jack up your armor value with Ironclad Charge and with Parasitic Armor, you get considerably more iron skin, and whenever those effects wear off, like your Ironclad Charge will wear off after 7 seconds, your iron skin doesn't go down. Your iron skin snapshots at whatever number gets created when you put it on, letting you have hundreds of thousands of EHP to work with. This is really good for whenever you need to do challenges that are like don't take damage, because damage to Iron Skin does not count as damage to RHINO, and you can get really, really high base numbers that are basically impossible for regular Star Chart enemies to ever work through without nullification. And that's extremely, extremely helpful. Worth noting on this build, I would say that just for like comfiness, if you don't have Energize, you probably want to use Streamline over Stretch. Stretch makes it way easier to hit way more enemies, but also you really need to have the amount of energy necessary to do the full thing where you hit 4, hit 1, and then hit 2. And that can be kind of tough because that is, 125 energy. If you don't have Prime Flow and like Energize to back that up, especially if you need to reapply like multiple times, or if you're also wanting to keep Roar up all the time, it can be challenging without Energize. It's not usually too big a deal. It's just a comfiness thing that you can do. So yeah, other things you can do. I have enemy radar on here right now. You can definitely use growing power for even more strength, but I don't think that that's really necessary at all. And enemy radar is pretty useful for just knowing where everybody is, so you can get that big cluster and group for your one. So that's really just like kind of whatever your decision is on what you want to do with it. So yeah, that's pretty much what's up. We're gonna go over some like numbers that you get. So like if you just use the 4 and give up all of your shields and throw your 2 on, that increase in armor is going to give you 18.2k EHP to work with. You can hit your 4, which is your parasitic armor, to turn it off early to start regaining shields, which you're going to want to because the armor's not going to do you any good with the iron skin over it. But your baseline value here is going to be 18.2k. That is going to be higher if you are on Matarai. So if you're on Matarai, that's going to be 40% strength, and that's going to work on both abilities. So we're going to do parasitic armor into our iron skin, and that number is instead going to be 24k. And just that, or even the 18k, honestly, for what we're going to talk about, just that amount is more than enough. Like, enemies in regular star chart won't really be able to hurt you through that. Like, that's not really going to happen. They kind of can't do that amount of damage. But on the Steel Path, enemies, over enough time, will be able to do that amount of damage. So we want to use Ironclad Charge to make it so that that's a non-factor for us. So for that, we're going to spawn some enemies in and just kind of do normal things. Okay, it's worth noting that this group generally is going to be, like, you're not usually going to hit as many enemies as you, like, realistically can in the Steel Path, but that's not really a big deal. To get, like, our biggest number possible, we are going to want to use, like, a little bit of Matarai here, throw the 4 on, and then, yeah, that seems good. Hit, like, 4 guys, and then turn off and turn back on our Iron Skin, and we're at 130k. So if you do any amount of, like, jumping around and fighting, and, like, avoiding any amount of gunfire, and not just sitting in front of enemies and, like, letting them wail on you, this will last, like, 10 minutes. And you can refresh it whenever you want, because we're using Iron Shrapnel. Some people forego Iron Shrapnel for just, like, timing the re-up of your Iron Skin to whenever you think it's going to run out. But for me personally, I don't find that to be very useful. And I also like to have a base layer of Iron Skin whenever I am doing a setup like this. Also, worth noting, this, like, 122k that we have right now, usually whenever you are fully, molt augmented all up, and if you can get a decent group of enemies, you're going to hit, like, that 250,000 range fairly easily, especially on, like, survivals and stuff like that. That's usually not going to be much of a problem at all once those things are stacked up. And that's going to last, tons and tons and tons of time. The thing to avoid, I will say, on this build is that it is possible to refresh it too often. Usually if you're at, like, once you get below 30k is usually where you're going to try and look for a good opportunity to re-up it and get back into the hundreds of thousands. But it's not super urgent unless, like, maybe an Acolyte is about to show up or something and you really want to have, like, the big armor for just tanking them while you just shoot them in the face and they can't do anything about you. So yeah, that's pretty much what's up with RHINO right now. And, like, the setup and everything that goes into it, it's a gameplay style that, like, I enjoy, but it just is not very competitive whenever you compare it to Nezha. But some people don't like to slip and slide around and be fast in that way, or, like, they don't want to use, Nezha's 2 for survival, and, like, they don't want to, like, recast the 3 a bunch, and, like, this is one big setup, and then you just kind of hang out in your armor and throw Roar on. And for some people, that's going to be more comfortable, and it's a perfectly reasonable way to play. It's very hard to stop RHINO, even today, and it's, a Warframe that a lot of people are attached to because he's so good in the early game, and it's honestly really easy to get attached to that. So yeah, that's what's up with Rhino. Steel Path run, pretty simple stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow. There we go. Now we're recording the run for YouTube. I'll skip this so that people in the YouTube know what song this is. Oh, you have a cat named Catastrophe? That's true. Really enjoy the sound of the new ship. High future me, probably. Well, big arm.
Scans show Grenier are harvesting Kuva nearby. Set off the alarms to draw them out, then steal their Kuva catalysts.
This is what I get.
Predictable. As expected, Grenier
I get for hitting the wrong button.
Environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules. Use these to sustain your environment or attach Kuva catalysts to begin harvesting.
All right, risky setup, but it paid off. We have 100k iron skin. I wish I could position specific UI elements, because I would love to have iron skin as a number that's like under my reticle. It's so integrally important to like what Rhino's up to. Yeah, the next iron skin I'm gonna make is probably gonna be whenever my stacks are full.
Life support on the way.
The Warframe could use a UI element above ammo. Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, Rhinos would be pretty nice there. But like, I mean, I really do legitimately mean it. I just want my relevant number under my reticle. Like, I want it under my reticle as like a color that's like easy on the eyes, like how my buffs are green. Which, by the way, if you don't know, you can just go change like all your buffs and stuff to be whatever color you want, and like there's plenty of UI elements you can change. That is just in the options. There's no special thing for that. Because people ask that all the time in YouTube comments. Still doesn't show us how good he is at the game. Ah, yes, of course, yes. Yeah, just so we're all clear, this is all roar. This weapon's usually not very good, but this is definitely roar doing all the work here. We're losing about like 10k HP a minute or whatever.
Prepare for life support.
You know, these rooms are actually pretty good for Rhino though, because like the little like split hallways actually can really help him get a really high number. Like this one should be. There we go, 161k. We love to see it. Now we wait for armor to fall off? Absolutely not. We are always running iron shrapnel to be able to re-up. Yeah, when iron shrapnel should be like baked into Rhino's kit. But like you should run it. Like it is very useful to be able to refresh. Oh, also, a thing that's notable for this run is that there's currently the bug. For anyone that's on YouTube, we just talked about this on stream. There's currently the bug with all of the galvanized mods and all of the gun and like primary merciless, secondary merciless, all that stuff. If you lose one stack of any of those buffs, you lose the entire buff and cannot regain that buff until all of the stacks fall off. So I think we've had one like stack fall off, so it really is pretty ass. No more tanker rhino. Yeah, we tested tanker rhino and like using tanker and stuff, and you can, but like it's just too much work, and like you don't need to do it. Like before it was like haha funny and it was like the only way to get that much armor, but like that's just not the case now. Terrible gun. Just absolutely awful. All roar. Just all roar there.
Our operative is making progress. This will help our cause. When you are ready, go to extraction.
Just honestly a gun no one should use, really. I mean, really and truly. Yeah, normally though, if we were getting like all of our proper bonuses and everything, which we're not, these enemies would just like die to like roar plus this thing's alt fire. Also getting a nice 135% roar, which is very strong. As you can see, it's all roar. Bang bang. Yeah, because of the like bugs that are currently happening with weapons and stuff, you'll generally see me in these build refreshes be using some like higher quality weapons, except for this one, of course, to compensate for the buffs being like totally broken and not working. But you would think would get emergency patch, but it doesn't seem to be like, this does not seem like that's going to happen. Probably kind of a mid amount. Yeah, 228k. I was really hoping for 300k, but I didn't go through the whole crowd. The galvanized chamber fell off. Yeah, I don't know what else is falling off. I haven't been explicitly paying attention to everything that's fallen off, but most of it should have by now. At least like my Merciless is probably fallen off. Yeah, Merciless is there, but I think it's not working. Because otherwise, I'd be doing more damage than this. Yeah, for anyone doing like a really big concern, most of the really good weapons you can just use like serrations and hornet strikes and stuff and still just totally get away with it. Which is what I would suggest doing in the interim before. Please, for the love of God, patch that. Yeah, game's bugged, the UI is lying. TLDR. TLDR, shit don't work. Please patch. Please hotfix. Even if it was just the primary Merciless and secondary Merciless, it would be really nice. Those are like, you know, kind of core to the rebalance of the primary and secondary weapons. Like without them, it's kind of like, you know, pre-patch. Pretty much. Well, damage is really off. It seems like a very severe bug. It is. Yep. It is an incredibly severe bug. Obviously, for people like me, it can be circumvented with roar, roar, or good weapons, or really, really good weapons. But roar definitely does it, as you can see. Oh, it's fucking Malice. All my homies hate Malice. Oh, don't put the bubble on me, jack off. Die. Out of here. No way. I did so much damage to my own iron skin there. You know, I bet if Merciless was working, I would have killed myself there. So, hey, look on the bright side, right? Iron skin prevent the bubble from sticking. Oh, no, you can actually roll out of that bubble. If you just roll, then the bubble stays wherever you rolled out of it from. Yeah, RHINO doing RHINO things. RHINO things are worse than Neja things these days. But, you know, it's different. And that's you know what? Some people just like RHINO. Some people don't want to play as Neja. And it's not that RHINO is like bad. It's just that he is like a lot more, like he needs a lot more to get going than Neja does.
Hold out as long as you can.
RHINO's fashion with the Void Shell. I actually really do not like RHINO's Void Shell. I really don't like base RHINO. If it was like base Prime, I think I'd be into it. But like base RHINO with the Void Shell, I actually am really not into compared to like your other options. I mean, whatever. It's just cosmetics. Enjoy what you enjoy. RHINO's age shows a bit, but he still do the damage. Yeah, it turns out whenever you have the best buff Warframe has ever had, you can still do quite a bit. Turns out you're still pretty good. Survivability works plus best buff to ever grace Warframe. You be aight. Turns out you'll be aight. Hey, look, we got more secondary arcanes that don't work right now. RHINO's a boomer. Neja is Gen Z. Fuck. Oh no. Oh man. What a good time. RHINO's still just fun though. What an enjoyable playstyle.